The morning mist hung low over the Severn River as President Trump's motorcade pulled through the gates of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. This wasn't a scheduled visit. No advance teams had prepared, no ceremonial guards were arranged, and no media had been notified. Something had drawn him here on this gray October morning, something he couldn't quite explain even to his own staff. As Trump stepped out of his limousine, the crisp autumn air carried the sound of marching cadets in the distance. The leaves on the historic campus had turned brilliant shades of gold and crimson, creating a backdrop that spoke of tradition, honor, and sacrifice spanning centuries. Admiral Richardson, the superintendent, rushed to meet him, clearly surprised by the unannounced visit.
"Mr. President, we weren't expecting you today. Is everything all right?"
Trump paused, looking across the yard where young men and women in their pristine white uniforms moved with purpose and precision.
"I don't know, Admiral. Something told me I needed to be here today. Call it intuition."
What Trump didn't know was that across the campus, in Bancroft Hall, a young midshipman named David Chen was sitting alone in his room, staring at a photograph of a man in navy dress blues. The man in the photo had the same determined eyes as David, the same proud smile, but he would never see his son graduate from the academy he had dreamed of attending himself. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez knocked softly on David's door. She had been watching him closely for weeks, noticing the way he carried himself not with the typical confidence of a midshipman, but with a weight that seemed too heavy for his 19-year-old shoulders.
"Chen, you missed formation this morning. That's not like you,"
she said gently, entering the sparse room that all midshipmen called home. David quickly turned the photograph face down, but not before Commander Martinez caught a glimpse of it.
"I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again."
"David," she said, using his first name in a rare moment of informality.
"Talk to me. What's going on?"
For a moment, the young man's composure cracked.
It's the anniversary, ma'am. 3 years ago today, my father was killed in action in Afghanistan. He always wanted to attend the Naval Academy, but his family couldn't afford it. He enlisted instead, worked his way up through the ranks, and promised himself that someday his son would walk these halls.
Commander Martinez felt her heart tighten. She had seen this before, the children of fallen heroes carrying the weight of their parents' dreams along with their own grief.
"He never got to see me receive my appointment,"
David continued, his voice barely above a whisper.
"Some days, I wonder if I'm here for me or for him. And some days, I wonder if I'm strong enough to carry his dream."
Meanwhile, President Trump was walking across the yard with Admiral Richardson when something caught his attention. Through a window of Bancroft Hall, he could see a young midshipman sitting alone, and something about the posture, the isolation, reminded him of his own son during difficult times.
"Admiral, who is that young man up there?"
Trump asked, pointing toward the window. Admiral Richardson followed his gaze.
"That would be Midshipman Chen, sir. Excellent student, outstanding character. His father was a Navy SEAL who made the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan. David's been struggling lately. It's the anniversary of his father's death."
Trump stopped walking.
"Take me to him. Sir, take me to meet this young man. Now!"
Admiral Richardson looked surprised but nodded. They made their way into Bancroft Hall, their footsteps echoing through the corridors lined with portraits of naval heroes from generations past. Each face seemed to watch as they climbed the stairs, as if sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Commander Martinez was still talking with David when they heard the commotion in the hallway's Secret Service agents, the click of dress shoes, and hushed, urgent voices. Before either of them could react, there was a knock at the door.
"Midshipman Chen?"
Admiral Richardson's voice carried through the door.
"May we come in?"
David shot to his feet, quickly straightening his uniform. Commander Martinez opened the door, and her eyes widened as she saw not just the admiral, but the President of the United States standing in the narrow hallway of Bancroft Hall.
"Midshipman Chen,"
Admiral Richardson said formally.
"I'd like you to meet President Trump."
David's training kicked in immediately. He snapped to attention, but Trump quickly raised his hand.
"At ease, son. Mind if I sit down?"
The small room suddenly felt even smaller with the President, the Admiral, Commander Martinez, and 2 Secret Service agents crowding in. Trump noticed the photograph that David had turned face down and gently picked it up. The image showed a proud Navy SEAL in his dress blues, standing in front of an American flag. The resemblance between father and son was unmistakable, the same determined jawline, the same intelligent eyes, the same slight smile that suggested inner strength.
"Tell me about your father,"
Trump said simply, his voice carrying none of the bravado that usually characterized his public speaking. This was a different man, a father speaking to a son who had lost his father. David's composure wavered.
"His name was Chief Petty Officer Michael Chen, sir. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He was killed trying to rescue a wounded Army Ranger who had been separated from his unit."
Trump studied the photograph for a long moment.
"Did he save the Ranger?" "Yes, sir. But he didn't make it back himself. The Ranger lived, went home to his wife and 2 daughters. My father, he said that was what mattered."
The room fell silent except for the distant sound of cadets marching in formation outside. Trump continued to hold the photograph, and those present could see something changing in his expression.
"David,"
Trump said.
"May I call you David?"
The young man nodded.
"Your father never got to attend the Naval Academy, is that right?" "No, sir. His family immigrated from Taiwan when he was 12. They worked multiple jobs just to survive. College wasn't an option, but the military gave him a chance to serve the country that had given his family a home."
Trump nodded slowly.
"And now you're here, living his dream." "I'm trying to, sir. But sometimes I feel like I'm not worthy of it. He was a hero. I'm just trying not to fail."
Commander Martinez stepped forward.
"Mr. President, David is one of our most promising midshipmen. His grades are excellent, his leadership evaluations are outstanding, and his character is beyond reproach. His father would be incredibly proud."
Trump stood up and walked to the small window that looked out over the yard. Below, hundreds of midshipmen were going about their daily routine, some hurrying to class, others marching in formation, all of them preparing to serve their country just as David's father had done.
"David, let me tell you something about heroes,"
Trump said, still looking out the window.
"Heroes aren't people who never feel fear or doubt. Heroes are people who feel those things and serve anyway. Your father felt fear every time he went on a mission, but he went because it was his duty. You feel doubt about whether you belong here, but you stay because it's your calling."
He turned back to face the young man.
"Your father didn't just die for that Army Ranger. He died knowing that his son would carry on his legacy of service. You're not here just to fulfill his dream, you're here because you've earned the right to be here."
David's eyes filled with tears, but he maintained his military bearing.
"Sir, I just miss him so much. Today especially. I keep thinking about all the things he'll never see: my graduation, my commissioning, maybe someday my own children."
Trump walked over and placed a hand on David's shoulder.
"Son, let me share something with you that I learned from my own father. The people we love never really leave us. They live on in the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the way we treat others. Your father is here, in this room, right now. He's in your dedication to excellence, your commitment to service, and your love for your country."
The president paused, seeming to wrestle with something internally.
"David, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. What would your father want most for you right now?"
David wiped his eyes quickly.
He'd want me to graduate, sir. To become the naval officer he always dreamed of being. To serve with honor. And what do you want?
For the first time since the conversation began, David smiled a genuine smile that transformed his entire face.
I want the same thing, sir. I want to make him proud. I want to serve my country the way he did.
Trump nodded approvingly.
Then that's exactly what you're going to do.
He turned to Admiral Richardson.
Admiral, I want to do something and I need your help.
But before Trump could explain what he had in mind, Commander Martinez's radio crackled to life.
All personnel, we have a medical emergency in King Hall. Midshipman collapsed during formation. Request immediate medical assistance.
The group rushed from David's room, but as they hurried through the corridors, Trump noticed that David was keeping pace, his earlier melancholy replaced by the focused determination of a future naval officer responding to an emergency. In King Hall, they found a crowd gathered around a fallen midshipman. The young woman was conscious but clearly in distress, her face pale and her breathing labored. The Academy's medical team was already on scene, but it was clear this was serious.
What happened?
Commander Martinez asked one of the other midshipmen.
She just collapsed during formation, ma'am. 1 minute she was fine, the next minute she was on the ground.
David pushed through the crowd and knelt beside the fallen midshipman.
Emily, it's David Chen. Can you hear me?
The young woman's eyes focused on him weakly.
David, I can't breathe right.
Without hesitation, David began talking to her in a calm, reassuring voice while the medical team worked.
Emily, remember what we learned in emergency response training. You're going to be okay. Just focus on my voice.
Trump watched this scene unfold with growing admiration. Here was the same young man who had been paralyzed by grief and self-doubt just minutes ago, now stepping up to help a fellow midshipman in crisis. The paramedics arrived and quickly determined that Emily was having a severe allergic reaction. As they prepared to transport her to the hospital, she grabbed David's hand.
Thank you,
she whispered.
You kept me calm.
After the ambulance left, the crowd began to disperse, but Trump remained, studying David with new interest.
Son, what you just did, staying calm under pressure, providing comfort to someone in distress, putting someone else's needs before your own, that's exactly what your father would have done.
David looked surprised.
I just did what anyone would do, sir. No,
Trump said firmly.
You did what a leader does. What a naval officer does. What your father's son does.
Admiral Richardson nodded in agreement.
The president is right, David. What you demonstrated just now is exactly the kind of leadership we're trying to develop in all our midshipmen.
Trump pulled Admiral Richardson aside.
I want to establish something here at the Academy. Something in honor of David's father and all the parents who sacrificed so their children could serve. What did you have in mind, Mr. President? A memorial scholarship program. Full funding for the children of fallen service members who want to attend the Academy. But more than that, I want to create a mentorship program that pairs these students with senior officers who can provide guidance and support.
Admiral Richardson's eyes lit up.
Mr. President, that would be extraordinary. The impact on families like David's would be immeasurable. And I want David to be the first recipient, not because he needs the money, but because he embodies what this program should represent: resilience, service, and the continuation of a legacy of honor.
They returned to where David was standing with Commander Martinez. Trump approached the young man with a serious expression.
David, I've been thinking about our conversation, and I want to make you an offer. But first, I want you to understand something. What I'm about to propose isn't charity, and it isn't pity. It's recognition of something exceptional.
David straightened, sensing the gravity of the moment.
I'm establishing a new program here at the Academy, the Fallen Heroes Legacy Scholarship. It will provide full financial support and mentorship for the children of service members who made the ultimate sacrifice. I want you to be the first recipient.
David's eyes widened.
Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes.
Trump smiled.
But there's more. I want you to help me design this program. Your experience, your perspective, your understanding of what it means to carry on a parent's legacy that's invaluable. Will you help me make sure we get this right?
For a moment, David was speechless. Then, with the bearing of the naval officer he was becoming, he stood at attention and said,
"It would be an honor, Mr. President."
Trump extended his hand.
"No, son. The honor is mine."
As they shook hands, Commander Martinez wiped away a tear. Admiral Richardson beamed with pride. And somewhere, in the space between memory and hope, Chief Petty Officer Michael Chen seemed to nod his approval. The unexpected visit to the Naval Academy had become something much more significant. It had become a moment when the President of the United States looked into the eyes of a grieving son and saw not just potential, but purpose. It had become the beginning of a program that would help hundreds of young people transform their loss into service. But most importantly, it had become the day when David Chen realized that carrying on his father's legacy wasn't a burden, it was a privilege. And as he watched President Trump's motorcade disappear through the Academy gates, he knew that his father's sacrifice had not been in vain. 3 months later, when the Fallen Heroes Legacy Scholarship was officially announced, David stood beside President Trump at the podium, no longer a young man weighed down by doubt, but a midshipman ready to lead. In his pocket, he carried the same photograph of his father, but now it represented not what was lost, but what would continue. The program would go on to help over 200 young people attend military academies across the country. But for David Chen, it had already accomplished its most important mission. It had helped him understand that some legacies are too important to be carried alone, and that sometimes, when we think we're just trying to honor the past, we're actually